My first guest tonight is the former deputy director of the FBI who was fired after launching investigations into President Trump's ties to Russia. His new book is The Threat. Please welcome former deputy director of the FBI, Andrew McCabe. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I imagine you never thought that you would be on a late-night talk show.
Never in my wildest dreams, yeah. Or nightmares. But.
Yeah, because you mostly have worked on things that you really can't discuss with the rest of us.
That's right. Like everyone who works for the FBI, you live a very private life, right? The work that we do is oftentimes, it's always sensitive, it's sometimes classified, it's things that we don't talk about, so.
Legally, do you have to look and dress like an extra from Dragnet to be in the FBI? Yeah.
Of course.
It's a good look.
Yeah,
I try to rock it when I can.
Got it.
Now, your new book is called The Threat. As I said before, how the FBI protects America in the age of terror and Trump. You have to give this to Donald Trump. He is single-handedly saving the publishing industry in America because everyone who ever spent 5 minutes in a room with him is just stampeding a publisher to say, you won't believe what this guy said.
You know, it's a series of amazing incidents when you have to interact with the president. So it's great fodder for stories.
At all times, but this president in particular, you, as I said, you were acting director after Comey was fired.
That's right.
And opened 2 investigations into the president, if I'm correct.
It's actually one investigation with a dual purpose. So there's a criminal concern. We thought that there may have been a federal crime committed, that being obstruction of justice.
And when he fired Comey.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And we also felt like there was the possibility that a threat to national security might exist.
Because he might be colluding or conspiring with the Russians, or they might have some compromise on him.
Well, I mean, it's a little bit more general than that. If you think that the President of the United States may have fired the director of the FBI for the purpose of interfering with or stopping our investigation into Russian malign influence in the campaign, the question you have to ask yourself is why? Why would any president do that? And that gives rise to the counterintelligence concern. Why would the President of the United States be trying to obstruct an investigation into Russia's activity?
And what makes you think that the president fired Comey because of the Russia investigation, other than the fact that he said that out loud?
Yeah.
Is there anything other than that? Is there anything other than like what he said to Lester Holt?
That was a good thing, and it was something that we were aware of.
That's called a lead
significant
in your business.
Thing. It is. It's an investigative lead. No, there were a number of things that concerned us as we investigated the possibility of Russian collusion with the Trump campaign through the fall. So that's the investigation that Jim Comey had made public.
What is it like to be in a room where people are seriously considering and eventually decide to? What's it like to be in that room when you're having to seriously consider whether to investigate the President of the United States?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, look, we don't train at Quantico for here's what to do when you think you need to investigate the President of the United States. It's just not a topic that we talk about. But what we do train on is we say, look, these are the authorities we have, and this is how we lawfully execute them. And when we have information or facts that indicate that a crime may have been committed or that a threat to national security may exist, then we are obligated as the FBI to investigate that matter, whether it's the president or anybody else. We don't open investigations because we like someone or don't like them or because they're a Republican or a Democrat. We open investigations when we have the information that would predicate an investigation. We had that in this instance, undeniably.
All right, you described the period of time after Director Comey was fired as a period of chaos and frenzy at the FBI headquarters.
That's right.
What is the FBI like when it's in a chaotic frenzy? That's a disconcerting description.
Our dark ties are slightly askew on our white shirts. That's the first sign.
Just that? Okay.
First sign.
Yeah.
You know,
You're not drama queens,
No,
generally
no.
speaking.
There's not a lot of people running through the halls with their hair on fire. It was a very serious time. I felt that my time as acting director would likely be very short. I knew that because the president told me that was the likely result. And I knew there was work we needed to do to make sure the investigation was on rock solid ground.
The Associated Press says that you asked for a backup plan to protect Russia evidence. What was that backup plan?
I can't tell you the details of the backup plan, but I can say this, Stephen. That's our job, right? That's our job, to prepare for eventualities.
Is it like on a thumb drive inside a brick, someplace in DuPont Circle? Did you have to do spy stuff to hide it, or?
It's on those tape reels that turn to smoke at the beginning of the show. No, it was just...
You joke, but now I know those are real because it's the first thing you thought of.
Yeah.
Okay, now...
we needed to know what we would do if Director Mueller was suddenly fired and his team was disbanded. And what we needed to do in that circumstance was to be able to take our cases back and continue those investigations. So that's kind of what we thought through.
You worked for Mueller, didn't you?
I did, many years.
What's he like as a person?
He's a tough guy. He is a lot of what you've heard about him. He is an investigator at heart. That is what he loves to do. He loves cases. He loves to get his hands on them. He loves to hear the details, talk to the investigators, plan strategy, and move investigations forward. So I am sure that he is just as happy as he can possibly be in the position he's currently in.
He looks happy.
Yeah.
Just a big, silly grin all the time on his face.
That's about as happy as he gets.
Have you ever seen him in chaos or frenzy? What's the most exercised you've seen Robert Mueller?
I've seen him frustrated. I've seen him, disappointed with the things we were telling him.
What does he do? How does he express himself?
When Director Mueller would get frustrated, we had this sign that we would always look for. If his head came down into his hand, we knew it was a problem. We were off the rails.
Yeah, that's fairly common among all humans.
I think so. Again, an investigative crew.
But you're a trained FBI man. You see those things.
That's right.
This is a tell.
That's right. Just like that. It was just like that.
Now, in the book, which is a good read, it's actually, you lay things out, well, like an investigator. You lay things out in a very orderly way here. It's a very easy read and very interesting read. I recommend it to people. I gotta say, Rod Rosenstein does not come off great in this book. You mentioned that he feels like the blame for firing Comey is gonna be pinned on him. He's afraid that they're gonna pin it on him because he gave the president a letter justifying the firing of James Comey.
That's right.
Do you have any idea why he would do that if he didn't think it was actually justified? Because you and Comey, in your book and in his book, are very clear where you will not allow yourself to be pushed, where you will not go. And it gets a sense that Rosenstein feels like he was sort of pushed into to a place he didn't want to be.
Look, I can't tell you what's in Rod's head, but from what I observed, I don't think that Rod regretted writing the memo. I'm sure he would still stand by that to this day. What he was troubled by was the administration's efforts to make it seem as if the entire thing was his idea, when in fact, he kind of stepped into the process at the last second and volunteered to write that memo.
One of the things that you, not in the book, but in interviews, you said that the two of you discussed, or that Rod Rosenstein brought up the idea of invoking the 25th Amendment, which allows the vice president and a majority of the cabinet or majority of Senate and House leaders to remove the president from office.
That's right.
And how did that come up again? I know Pelly asked you this question. I'm going to ask you again. How did that subject come up?
It came up in the middle of a chaotic and long conversation about what were we going to do next. And again, I can't even describe to you how head-spinning this was to be, the highest-ranking official in the FBI, a and one of the highest-ranking officials in the Justice Department, considering we have a president who we think may have attempted to obstruct justice, may also present a national security threat to the nation. What do we do about this? In my lane, that means investigation, right? I'm running the investigator. So the question for me was, do we investigate this? If so, how? What's the best way to do it? And Rod was really just kind of spinning through a number of different topics. That's one thing that he mentioned in the course of that chaotic conversation. It's not something that I'm aware of that ever went any further than that brief mention.
So the question was, if we had to get the president out of office, how would I do that?
What are the ways you can
remove a president from office? Okay. So Lindsey Graham has called this let me get this right, he wants to investigate a potential coup. How coup-y did it feel to you in the moment? I mean, it's a constitutional coup in a way, but it's a coup.
I mean,
in Lindsey Graham's opinion.
I think that's a contradiction in and of itself, right?
A constitutional coup?
Yeah, I mean, it was not
like
very...
Like jumbo shrimp or something like that?
It was not very coup-y. Again, it was a mention in the midst of a wide-ranging conversation. I'm not aware that Rod ever took any efforts to pursue that. I'm not aware of any meetings about it or other discussions on it. It was, for me, really just an indicator of just how frenzied and fraught the situation was that we were in, and those were the kind of things that were bouncing around.
Let's get to the Mueller probe for just a moment here. Is there anything in the last 2 years that makes you less suspicious of the president, or is less indicative that he had an improper relationship with the Russians? Possible collusion or conspiracy?
No. Did I answer too quickly?
No.
Okay.
It does seem odd. It does seem odd. It might be just sort of useful for him to say or do anything that Putin wouldn't like, just to sort of take the heat off of him, make him seem less suspicious, but he won't do that.
That's definitely true. And I think in addition to that, as a result of the work that the Mueller team has done, and what we know of that work from what's been disclosed to the public, I mean, you have an incredible number of people in the campaign, close to the president, who had numerous contacts with Russians, people connected to Russian intelligence, and now we have many of those same people who actively tried to cover up those contacts. I mean, it all seems to get more suspicious every day.
We have to take a break, but if you can stick around, don't go away. When we come back, we're going to talk more about the Robert Mueller investigation.